You're listening to The Drew Yari Show.
Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Drew. Welcome to the Drew Yard Show. It feels like it's been a hot minute since I've done this show. That was kind of a weak intro. Whatever, who cares? But yeah, the new schedule. I mean, as you guys know, has it's been what it was. I'm working mornings and I come out early and I have time to do shows during the day and do shit during the day, but I don't know, like I get like it's become one of those things where like I don't like working mornings. I thought I could handle it, but I really cannot because I really like sleeping in. I like being able to sleep in. It's like I was telling my girl, it's like, you know, I usually tend to go to sleep at the same time. Like even when I was working nights and I would, be able to sleep in during the day, I would virtually just go to sleep around the same time. But difference then was, I would have more time to sleep and I wouldn't wake up as cranky. Whereas, having to work mornings, it's like one of those things where you have to kind of plan accordingly, where you're like, oh, I gotta be up early tomorrow. Where instead before it's like, all right, I don't go until 3 tomorrow, so I can just sleep in. I can play a game if I want. I can watch a movie if I can't sleep. So, um, not to say I'm complaining. I guess I can name, but it gave me more time to do the Patreon, which again, go sign up, please. Well, go sign up, please. $5 a month. Just did some shows last week with, I think I did one with Ruben, if I'm not mistaken. I know I did one with RJ, which was a really fun one. We reviewed, in our opinion, what we thought were the top 10 best and worst, wrestling themes. So go check that out. But going back to the schedule, I'm now going back to my old schedule, which was 3 to 10, but instead it's going to be on Wednesdays and Thursdays, like my schedule was before. Because before I would do the shows on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Central Time, which was a lot easy. It was so easy to do because before on Wednesdays, I was able to watch NXT live and then just watch AEW the next day and just review it. And if there's some stupid shit, I would just fast forward, which there's a lot of stupid shit, and then I can just have time to dissect both shows and review it. Now I'm able to do that again soon. I don't know when, but this past Sunday they put up a new list of open shifts, and one of them was second shift Wednesday and Thursday off. So I signed up and I got it. They told me, hey, you got it. We're just not sure when we're going to send you. We're not good. It's not going to be like last time because before I was able to get first shift back. I got first shift back in December, and then they said you'll start sometime in January, and then January never came, and then February never came, and then March never came, and then April came. It was mainly an HR issue, which we'll get into now. But they said hopefully we're trying to get everyone to their new shifts ASAP. So got that to look forward to. It's not gonna affect. It's definitely not gonna affect this show. I mean, if any, I'm gonna go back to doing shows Thursdays at 5 because I like doing shows at Thursdays at 5. I used to do them at 6:30, but then a certain wrestling podcast decided to take that slot. I'm not gonna say who it is. I'm looking at you, Mish. Yeah, talking to you, Anthony Missionary Thomas. That is your real name. But no, I'm fucking around. Yeah, I like doing shows at 5 because they're easy to do. You can just do like an hour and a half. sometimes 2 hours, depending, and then you're out. That's it. That's all you got. As far as like the Patreon goes, it's definitely not going to affect the Patreon. I'll let you though. I'll let you know that right now. We're going to have to plan accordingly. Definitely. Where we're going to have to make sure that we are all on the same like schedule and all on the same like idea of how we're going to schedule these shows. Because if I'm working at 3 and RJ has to work at, I'm just giving an example. If RJ has to work, late, then we can try and do a show early in the morning, which that won't be a problem. And I'll be off Wednesdays and Thursdays, so we can always do a show on Wednesday. So I don't know, but I haven't talked to the guys yet. I'll let them know. I'm pretty sure they'll find out here. So I'm trying to get Ruben on. I asked him if he can come on, and he said no promises. But if he can't get on, then solo show. I've been doing that for years. Solo shows. Yeah. Again, I don't want to neglect this show. I'm sorry that there was no show last week. It was just a busy week. It was a busy week, and I tried everything I could to fit a show in. Couldn't do it, but I'm able to do one today. So, and we got some news to talk about. Not sure what I should get into first. I mean, we can get into NXT we can get into NXT. We can just kind of breeze by that. So NXT was last night. Okay, so I came in on NXT like maybe 6 minutes in because me and my girl were watching Once Upon a Time. I never watched the show and it was actually pretty interesting. So I was kind of getting hooked. But then 7 came along like, all right, I gotta watch NXT. So I came in again 6 minutes late in the first match, which was, Karrion Kross versus Austin Theory in a non-title. To give people, I guess, the origin story of this match is last week, Austin Theory and Johnny Gargano burst into William Regal's office like they always do, while Scarlett was in there, and Scarlett just had this pissed off look on her face, like, "What the fuck?" And Austin looks at Scarlett, and goes, "Are those real?" And the joke is that he's supposedly talking about her tits, which I'm gonna say those aren't real. That's just a guess. Maybe they are. I don't know. I don't want Cross. I like Cross. I don't want Cross hearing this and kicking my ass. But no, like he was actually talking about her nails, her like acrylic black nails. So flash forward, to um, later in the night, William Regal tells Austin Theory, Scarlett requested a match with your friend Austin Theory. So that's how the match began. And then, that night, Theory and Gargano, you know, blindsided Cross, and just beat his ass to kind of set up the match. So this match kicked off the show. For the most part, Cross was dominant, but Austin got a few licks in. It was a lot of Johnny Gargano, coaching Austin, saying, "Hey, look out! He's getting up. He's getting up." One thing I gotta say about Austin is that he knows how to sell. He really does know how to sell. He has good facials. He's a guy that a lot of people are high on, and I'm high on him too. I like him. I've done a 180 on him because the first time I saw him, I thought he was just. I always refer to him as a creator wrestler. He was a call. He was a call on WWE 2K, but he's grown on me because he's shown me that he has personality and he obviously has a talent. But and I don't want to say it like it's a bad thing, but he has a Dolph Ziggler career, which there's no shame in that. Dolph Ziggler has made a name for himself. The guy has money. The guy has won every title under the sun in the company. So there's no shame in having a Dolph Ziggler career. There really isn't. As far as like him being maybe like a John Cena or AJ Styles, no, probably won't be. But the guy knows how to sell, and he was selling for Cross, and the whole time Cross is just beating the shit out of him, and he's looking at Johnny Gargano while he's doing it, and he does what is it? He does two Doomsday Saedos and puts him in a cross check it while he's staring at Gargano. Pretty much just saying, I'm doing this because I fucking can. This is on your head, Johnny. Like, I would have liked if Cross had just said, "This is on your head, Johnny." But Cross, you know, for him, it's better. It's better what you don't say than what you do say. That's just how I see it. And then next week, they announced it's going to be Gargano and Bronson Reed for the North American Championship. So we got that to look forward to. Uh, Next, you had MSK versus Breezango in a non-title match. Well, the first match was non-title between Cross and Theory, so get that out of the way. Another non-title, you got MSK versus Breezango. Um, good match. It didn't light the world on fire, but it was okay. Um, One thing I've been hearing is that MSK is apparently being booed, and I have no idea why. I don't, because I know those are fans, but those are I would imagine that those aren't actual. I don't want to say legit fans, but those are like the people who are like friends of the family of WWE wrestlers and staff. So you know a lot of people on my timeline have been saying that MSK has been getting booed. So I don't know where that's going. I don't know if maybe the staffers just don't like MSK, if those are actual fans that don't like MSK. But I don't know. I don't know why they're getting booed. If that's the case, I don't know why. But I like MSK. I mean, they've grown on me because again, I just thought they were kind of like the typical tag team that you would see on AEW. They just do spots and that's about it. But they're kind of like I guess like a modern day Hardy Boys in some aspects. I mean, a lot of people thought the Young Bucks were the modern day Hardy Boys. The Young Bucks were the Hardy Boys when they first came into WWF. WWF. MSK are the Hardy Boys in the early to mid 2000s. In my opinion, anyone can disagree with me if they want, but again, I thought the match was okay. It wasn't really anything to get wet over. And MSK called out Legado del Fantasma as their next opponent, so we got that to look forward to. Then you had Pete Dunne coming out talking a little bit of shit, and I mean, I've always said I'm not a Pete Dunne fan. I mean, he's usually like anytime he's on screen, I try to look for something else to do, like look at my phone, I'll watch some porn, I don't know, get something to eat, maybe watch porn while I eat, maybe not in that order. But I mean, how I kind of confused myself there for a second. Forget that. But he came out, talked a little bit of shit, talked about Karrion Kross, saying I'm the baddest man out there, blah blah. Leon Ruff comes out. Leon Ruff earlier in the night, forgot to mention. He's in Regal's office saying, "I want a match. I want a match," and Regal's saying, "I'm not gonna let you wrestle because you just got your ass beat last week by Swerve." And Ruff is just he's very adamant. He's like, "I can still wrestle. The doctors cleared me." And Regal's like, "Yeah, I know they cleared you, but I'm still not gonna let you wrestle. I'm just looking out for you." And Ruff is throwing Regal's shit around the office, saying, "Let me wrestle. Let me wrestle." Um, Another guy I'm not too high on because it's just like I I mean the whole moment of him, you know, shocking Johnny Gargano getting the North American Championship. I mean, that was like a one-time thing, and now we're continuing to see him on TV for whatever reason. What's up, Maurice? So I really don't care. I kind of want to see him off my TV. I mean, stick him on 205 Live if anything, or just release the guy because he doesn't really add anything to anything. Like if he's the guy that needs to be the guy that puts the other guy over. Because if we're remembering, Cross's first match on NXT was against Leon Ruff. That's a little history lesson. So he should be the jobber of NXT. I mean, let him be a jobber on WWE. Let him have that Scotty Too Hottie career. I mean, there's no shame in that. There's really no shame in having a lot of careers. There's no shame in having a Scotty Too Hottie career, or a Brooklyn Brawler career, or a Dolph Ziggler career. As long as you're making money, as long as people know who you are, then that's really all that matters. So, He comes out and attacks Pete Dunne, and then Pete Dunne destroys him. So there was that. um, Next match we had Raquel Gonzalez, the NXT Women's Champion, defend her title against Mercedes Martinez in a really good match. These two, these two just really went out and brought it. Raquel Gonzalez, not Raquel, but Mercedes. To me, again, she's gonna have that career of putting somebody else over, and again, there's really no shame in that. And at the same time, it's like, what else would you have her do? Because she's on the older side, which again, I'm not knocking older ladies. I'm just kind of pointing out the fact she's on the older side. So what realistically, what would the company have her do? So she's gonna be like a what you call it. She's gonna kind of fill that quota that Mickey James filled when whenever she left, which was she's gonna be the older female on the roster that's gonna put over the younger talent, and she's gonna make them look fucking like $1 million while she does it because she had that great match against Rhea last year in that cage match, which was amazing. And that was actually a candidate for my match, one of my match of the years. And she just had this match with Raquel. So I don't know how Mercedes is in real life. I hear nice things about her. So she obviously is very popular, in the locker room. So she's gonna be that Mickey James ish, maybe a hardcore Holly, maybe like a female hardcore Holly, minus the beating up the rookies on Tough Enough ish. Matt Capitelli, if anyone can remember that. So she's gonna have a good career in WWE. I mean, she won't really go too far, but she's gonna have a nice little career in WWE. But yeah, her and Raquel had a great match. She brought out the best in Raquel when she needed it because Raquel had that good match against Asuka at a Takeover Stand and Deliver on night one, and she was able to have another good match against Mercedes. So the theme of this is Raquel is having better matches against people that are better than her in the ring because one thing I've said about Raquel is that she works she works smart. She has a smart way of working because she knows her limits. If she knows she can't do something, then she's not going to even try to do it. She's not going to try and do a a a moonsault. She's not going to try and do a 360 splash or or I don't fucking know. Fill in the blank. She knows she can't do it, so she's not going to do it. She's going to work smart. She's going to work with whatever she's given with a lot of these smaller wrestlers like Asuka and Raquel. Not Raquel, Mercedes. So she works smart. So she's going to do fine. Um, I imagine she won't have any injuries in the near future if she continues to work the way she's working. So as long as she doesn't do anything stupid, I think she'll be fine. And this was another match of the year candidate. Isaiah Swerve Scott debuts in his new faction called Hit Row. He comes out with his new guys Top Dollar, Ashanti the Adonis, and B Fab, who literally looks like Jade Cargill. Like it looks like Diet Jade Cargill. But then again, I've never seen this woman wrestle. I don't even know if she's a wrestler. I would imagine she is. I mean, she supposedly said she opened for a rapper named Juicy J, which I have no clue who that is. Um, so good because I like Swerve. I like that they're now giving him more of a star treatment, moving him up on the card a little bit more because I've always been high on Swerve. He pointed out in his promo that he's for the longest time he was trying to do everything he could to please the fans, but no more. Good heel promo, simple, just simple and to the point. He wasn't trying to be emo and be like, when I was a child, I wanted to be just like Eddie Guerrero. Like, no, he didn't try and do anything stupid. He's made short and sweet and to the point. So I like that they're giving him his own faction, and hopefully this means that he's a lot more higher on the card. Let's see. And Cameron Grimes with Ted DiBiase again. I mean, I like Cameron Grimes. I like the vignettes, but I don't know what the payoff is. Like, I don't know if this is going to be a thing that brings Ted DiBiase into NXT as like his valet or somebody else's valet. Well, not valet, but manager. So I don't know. And then Zoe Stark promises to get her revenge on Tony Storm next week. So we got that to look forward to. Next match is Kyle O'Reilly versus Oni Lorcan. Uh, this match was set up outside. Lorcan talking shit to Kyle, saying, I could beat you anytime, anytime, any place, and Kyle accepts it. Kyle coming out, not so cool, Kyle. Him and Lorcan have a match. I mean, it was kind of was what it was. I mean, Lorcan's a good hand, but he's not really somebody who's gonna light the world on fire. Kyle O'Reilly, I mean, I like him. I don't hate the guy. Again, he's kind of janky looking. I mean, because it looks like he's gonna be, next after Finn, which we'll talk about that in a bit. Next after Finn. Well, we probably should have talked about that. Let me go back to Finn. So after the first match, which was Cross and Austin, Finn comes out and says, I want my rematch, and I've been waiting for my rematch. And Cross says, I've been waiting for that too. So in 2 weeks, Maurice, is it 2 weeks or next week that it's going to be Cross and Finn for the title again? So, anyways, I'll just speed up. 2 weeks. There you go, Maurice. Thank you, Maurice. So in 2 weeks we're gonna get Cross and Finn for the title rematch. So good for that. And then so back to this match. But yeah, O'Reilly wins. Lorcan and Pete Dunne, beat down O'Reilly, and then Bobby Fish. The returning Bobby Fish comes to the ring and saves O'Reilly. O'Reilly says, thanks, man, but remember saying thank you, man, but Undisputed Era is kind of dead, and Fish assures him, you're my friend. I'm always gonna help you out no matter what. So good to see Fish back, and I heard that that when he was walking to the back, he ended up bumping into a catering table. Now he's out for another 6 weeks. So too bad for Fish. I'm playing that didn't really happen, but it's good to see Bobby Fish. He's a rather old gentleman. You wouldn't notice though. I made the joke that he's back after shooting his stepdad scenes for Brazzers, because he literally looks like somebody you would see in Brazzers, like in a stepdad scene or like a teacher scene. Hey, I'm not knocking it. I mean, if he's getting bitches, good for him. I mean, I heard he's a happily married man, so good for Bobby. Um, Main event: 2 out of 3 falls, NXT Cruiserweight Championship match. Kushida and Santos Escobar. Hope I said that right. Another great match. I mean, these two seem to have very good chemistry with each other. Escobar is the typical lucha style. He kind of has that Eddie Guerrero workmanship where he doesn't do anything that's too fancy. And in an era of, guys have to constantly, do flips and do moves that kill themselves, Escobar doesn't do a lot of that. He's a mat wrestler. He's a mat wrestler, technical wrestler. He looks like somebody that can legit, whoop your ass. Shida works, the Japanese style because, he's Japanese. I mean, I hope he's Japanese. I don't want to like offend anyone, but those styles meshed, and these two went out there and had a clinic. They had a match of the year candidate. I even added it to my growing list of match of the year candidates, which, as you know, I always do my end of the year show, and I like to give out my 16, what I thought were the 16 best matches, the Sweet 16. But I have more than 16, so by Thanksgiving is when I'm gonna have to start narrowing that list down to 16, and like at the beginning of December, literally the first day of December is when I'm gonna put out my lists, and I found a less complicated way to do it. So look for that. Um, but these two were amazing. Of course, it came down to the wire where it was 1-1. Escobar ends up winning, with his finisher, and then Shida goes for his armbar, which right when he's going for it, they were saying that they're gonna commercial. and then you just hear, what is it, Vic Joseph go, no, truck, no, don't get commercial, don't get commercial. And then, Sheeta gets his move in and Escobar taps out. Um, and they were just trading blows back and forth. Like, it was simple. It was simple wrestling. The only thing I didn't like about it was that it ended. I wish they went on longer. I, re- I really wish they went on longer. I really enjoyed the match. I really enjoyed these two. I mean, Sheeta wins, so Sheeta won two out of the three falls. Um, and good. Sheeta needs that title. I'm glad Sheeta's getting a chance. Escobar, I don't know what they're going to do with him. I don't know if they're moving up. Blah, 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 blah. Let me repeat what I'm going to say. Moving him up on the main roster, which I hope not, or he's going to be a main event player in NXT, which I hope so, because I've been saying that for the longest time, that he's a guy that should be higher on the card. Um, that cruiserweight title, I think, was kind of a detriment to him more than it was helping him. Because when you look at him, the guy looks like $1,000,000. The guy can talk. The guy can work. If only, if only, if only he was like 6'2", 6'2" or 6'3". He could really be doing some damage on the main roster. If only he was Del Rio's, size and height, and then you mix that with Escobar's look and his personality. You have a star right there. Like, you have an actual, Latino, heavyweight champion that's actually interesting. The most interesting Latino heavyweight, champion since Eddie. And then Ray. I'm gonna throw Ray in there too, of course. Um, but again, love the match. Another match of the year candidate. I wouldn't mind another match between these two. I really wouldn't. Because I know we're and this is gonna be to answer your question, Maurice. So they announced that they're bringing back In Your House, WWE In Your House NXT. Which, let me just pull that up. So In Your House is going to be on June 13th. Forgot when I was on last year, but I'm glad they're bringing back In Your House. I think I was too young to enjoy In Your House. I didn't start watching wrestling until I was 8. So by that time they stopped doing In Your House, and they just stuck with their regular pay-per-views. But I'm glad NXT is doing a lot of the older pay-per-views, because I think they just bought, or not bought, but they trademarked Bash of the Beach, and the rumor is that the takeover before SummerSlam is going to be Bash of the Beach, which that's going to be fucking dope. Also considering that SummerSlam is going to be the prelude into going back to touring and bringing fans back in, which we'll talk about SummerSlam in a bit. But In Your House, I mean, I wouldn't mind a third match, because technically, they're on a rubber match. Well, I guess not, because Sheeta won the first one, and then he, you know, just beat him technically 2 times in one night. So I don't know. I wouldn't mind a third match. I really wouldn't. Maybe not a ladder match. I don't know what you would do. An Iron Man match? Hell, have a 30-minute Iron Man match with Sheeta and fucking Escobar. Why not? That'd be a great match. That'd be good shit. That's some good shit right there. So yeah, Takeover is June 13th. Answer your question, Maurice. I'm happy that they're bringing back I'm happy they're bringing back In Your House. I really am. I think it's dope. I think I wouldn't mind if they brought back more older, like, pay-per-view names and inserted it for NXT. Like, again, the rumor is that they're gonna have Bash of the Beach for Takeover for SummerSlam. They brought back Halloween Havoc last year, so bring that back. Why the fuck not? Bring back Starcade. What happened to Starcade? Like, have Starcade be a thing for Takeover every December. So fuck it. Bring in the WCW pay-per-views like Great American Bash, which they did last year. What's some other pay-per-views you can bring in? I mean, they're doing War Games, so there's that. I guess speaking of war games, I didn't really get a chance to talk about it on this show, but I talked about it on the Patreon show with RJ. So the blood and guts match from last week. Let's talk about that for a bit. I okay. I enjoyed it for what it was. I'm not opposed to blood because I've been saying until the cows come home that there needs to be blood in wrestling, but it needs to actually make sense and it needs to be necessary. Like for example, if you're going to have a non-sanctioned match, there needs to be blood because the whole point of a non-sanctioned match is that the company is not supporting this match. We don't recognize this as an official match, so let there be some blood. Kind of like what Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa did. There was blood in that. Kind of like what Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole didn't do. If you're going to have a Hell in the Cell match, there needs to be blood. If you're going to have a War Games match, there needs to be blood. If you're going to have a TLC match, you can get away with there not being blood. I mean, because you're still using weapons, but you could probably get away with not doing blood. An Extreme Rules match, blood, obviously. So you saw in this match that they were clearly blading, which was stupid. Don't do that. The fucking chair shots to the head, I thought was stupid. I thought we were done with that. Does anyone remember Chris Benoit? Huh? Huh? I guess not. I I thought the match was very one-sided because for a bit there, MJF's group was on top, and then as soon as Jericho came, they did this shit that I just kind of went, really? I just kind of threw my hands up and went, really? As soon as Jericho got in, literally everybody in the fucking ring decided to disperse and get on one side while the other group got on the one side and stare each other down. Instead of Jericho just coming in and just starting beating the shit out of people. No, as soon as he gets in, he's like, all right, guys, we got to pose. We got to look mean. It's like, really? Why don't you just piss in MJF's mouth? Why don't you just tell all 5 of those fucking guys to get on their knees so all 5 of you can piss on their face? You just made them look like bitches. You made everybody in that ring look like bitches, including your own guys. But so MJF gets out so he can climb to the top of the ring, and then Jericho gets up. And whatchamacallit? The end of the match is, MJF is going to throw Jericho off. He's teasing throwing him off. And then you just see Sammy go, no, 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 no. No, don't throw him off. We'll forfeit. We'll forfeit. And that's how the match ends. Which is lame. Lame, lame, lame. Just lame. And then, the constant commercial breaks. Why couldn't this be a pay-per-view match? This should have been a pay-per-view match. This should have been your main event of your pay-per-view. Especially since you're going to have fans back in and you're going back on touring pretty soon, which they announced, by the way. Their first show is going to be July 7th in Miami. And then they're going to be coming to Texas next month. So. And then, okay. So as he's about to push Jericho off, you hear the announcer saying, "That's concrete! That's solid concrete!" Sorry. And MJF pushes Jericho off of the cage and falls through concrete, quote unquote, but it's really cardboard. And you can just see debris floating. And it's just like. Oh my God. This fucking company. Okay, so 2 things. If you're going to commit. I'm not saying Jericho has to actually go through concrete. I'm not saying I want to see Jericho die. I'm saying make it look fucking legit at least. Or here's what you could have done. You could have filmed at a different angle. The show could have ended with MJF staring at the camera and smiling, and then that's when you see him shove Jericho. But it happens off camera, and you just hear the crowd going, and the announcer's just talking shit, which Schiavone was going ham. He was like, MJF's a piece of shit. I hate him. I wish he was dead. Um, and then it just ends with MJF staring into the camera while the whole crowd is going ape shit. Like you could have done that. That could have been a better way, or you could have just not fucking done it. It's like Joe Numbers said on the soup. AEW makes a lot of promises that they can't keep. They've been making a lot of promises that they can't keep, and that was one of them. So I really don't know, but uh, I mean, the match was okay until the end. The match was okay until Jericho came in and just literally slowed everything down. So I mean, I don't know what this leaves for him. I don't know if he's going back on tour for Fozzy, or if this is going to set up the eventual rematch between him and MJF at what is it, all out? Which I imagine it would. So storytelling, I guess. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on letting go. That's let's see what else. Backlash. Actually, let's say that for later. I want to talk about with the I know the week before the story because again, and when I started watching wrestling, where I remember this. I think I was born in the wrong era. Like I wish I was born in. I wish I was born 10 years. But with these shows, they educate you a little. They can tell you what happened. Shout out to those guys. But so yeah, just man, what a fucking sad story. I'm not even trying to say that to be a dick, but it's just like that guy really lived a hard life, Brian Pillman. Like by the time he was like what 7, he had already had multiple throat surgeries, and that's why he had that very gravelly kind of raspy voice, which helped him. Um, and then he went on to be a football player for the Cincinnati Bengals, went to go play in the CFL, and then he met his strength coach, which he turned him on to wrestling. He started out at Stampede Wrestling with the Hearts, and then he got noticed in WCW where he was flying Brian Pillman, and I believe he was the first ever cruiserweight champion, if I'm not mistaken. And he's a big name. Like they had said, Jim Cornette had said there's been a lot of start and stop pushes with Brian Pillman because WCW, before they settled on Bischoff, they were going back and forth with management. Because I know it was what is it? Uh, Jim Hurd. I know Jim Hurd was one of the owners. I believe Bill Watts was one of the owners, and I think Flair wasn't the owner, but Flair was like the booker. And then of course, Eric Bischoff. So Pillman was going through the stage of I'm getting pushed, but I'm getting deep pushed. Getting pushed, but I'm getting deep pushed. I'm getting pushed, but I'm getting deep pushed. So, and then we all know the story of Steve Austin before he became Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was stunning Steve Austin, and the story he always tells is I was in line to get this singles run to be the U.S. champion. I was looking forward to it, and then Brian Pillman literally says, "Hey, we need a gimmick. What the hell are you talking about? We're a tag team tonight." And Austin admits that he wasn't happy about it because he wanted to be a single star. He doesn't like being in tag teams, but he looks back on it fondly because Brian Pillman was his best friend. He still wears the gold chain that Brian Pillman got him, got them for their tag team. Because he said, "Hey, we need a gimmick. We need gold chains since we're the Hollywood Blondes." So he bought him a gold chain, and he says to this day he still keeps it. He'll still wear it because it's the only thing that he considers to have sentimental value. So it was good to see Austin in the documentary, especially for Brian Pillman because for Brian Pillman, you know, Steve Austin played a big role in his career, not just in WCW but in WWE. So it was good Steve Austin was able to be on this, particular episode. And then eventually, the Hollywood Blondes had to get split up, due to politics. The story for Jim Cornette, or the story that Jim Cornette tells, is the Hollywood Blondes are finally getting over, so they decided to put him in a tag team title match against, or a main event match against Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. But apparently, it didn't draw very well, so they're not going to blame Flair because Flair is the guy. So they blamed it on the Hollywood Blondes, and they split him up after that. They literally split him up, which Jim Cornette's like, I never heard of talent being buried over a bad rating. But then again, WCW was getting bad ratings at that time. Which when you look back on that, it's kind of a blessing in disguise because if they had kept the Hollywood Blondes intact, who's to say we wouldn't be talking about Stone Cold Steve Austin? Matter of fact, I don't even think there would be a Stone Cold Steve Austin. There would just be a Steve Austin. Um, so eventually, Brian Pillman developed the loose cannon gimmick where he was kind of talking off script and being really just out there. Um, he had a match with Eddie Guerrero, and during the match, he ends up going out of the ring and grabbing Bobby Heenan. Bobby Heenan yells live on television, "What the fuck are you doing?" And then he just takes his shit and leaves. So that began the loose cannon gimmick. And after that, he had that feud. He had a feud with Kevin, fuck his name, Kevin Sullivan, where at the time Kevin Sullivan was the booker. And during the match, after I believe Kevin Sullivan wins, Brian Pillman gets on the mic and says, "I respect you, Booker man," which that was one of the first times in wrestling you would hear someone break the fourth wall. And a lot of the old timers are very sensitive about revealing secrets and putting kayfabe out there. So the story is that Brian Pillman told Eric Bischoff, I want you to give me because I want more money, but here's what I'm going to do: release me so that way I can go to WWF and make more money, and I can come back here and you can double my value. Eric Bischoff, in his words, you can take it or want it. You can take it or leave it. Says that they both agreed on that. Nobody else knew about it. I'm trying to get comfortable. Oh, very good. So Brian Pillman got released, and he showed up on ECW for a hot minute, and then came to WWF. So before that, they were talking about Brian Pillman's love life. So his first daughter, whose name is Brittany, the woman he was married to was named Rochelle, but Brittany was saying that her dad was having a lot of affairs on the road, and he was having multiple children outside of the marriage. He had a daughter named Danny with another woman, and whatchamacallit. Then he had another son, Brian Jr., which we'll get into, with Melanie while they're married. And so he eventually ends up leaving Rochelle and he gets with Melanie, who he literally saw in a magazine and says, I got to get this woman. And just hearing the story about Rochelle was kind of heartbreaking because, just this woman who was very supportive of her husband, and they had a daughter together, and they weren't trying to they did not paint Brian as a saint. They made it very clear, he was no saint, he was not an angel, he was fucking up constantly. So he gets with Melanie, and that causes friction in the marriage because Rochelle is trying to get full custody of Brittany, but Melanie tries to get in Brian's head, say we should get full custody. And of course, there's like visitation shit and whatnot. There's a story where Rochelle shows up at a park while Brittany's there and sees her, and then Brian catches it, and he's somehow able to get full custody. So this poor woman lost her kids, which Melanie, to her credit, she did not come off well in this documentary. She didn't come off well, but at the same time, she she kind of she didn't try to hide behind her bullshit. She admitted that she fucked up royally. Like she even said, that shouldn't no child should have to go through that. No mother should ever have to fight for her kids. And she admitted she was a fuck up, which we'll talk about later on. And there's a story where Brittany's calling the house, but Brian's out of town, and then Melanie says, I'm a better mother than you. You and your own mother said that. And after that, Rochelle unfortunately took her own life, which took a toll on Brian. And again, that's when Melanie said, I look back on that and I just like it was a very I'm not proud of that. I wish I never did that. So, and then later on, while Brian is negotiating with WWF and WCW, he gets into a car accident while driving his Humvee, and the story, according to Melanie, is that he fell asleep at the wheel, and he ended up fucking up his whole body pretty much. Like he fucked up his face. He mainly fucked up his ankle. That was like the big thing was that he fucked up his ankle. WWF signed him anyway. They gave him the money he wanted, but he couldn't really do anything. I mean, because for the most part, he was an on-screen character. I mean, he started a short-lived feud with Steve Austin, which we all remember the bit where Steve Austin fucks up his ankle while they're in Cincinnati to get heel heat, and shows up to his house where Brian pulls out a gun and says, tell him to get out of the fucking way. Can you imagine? Okay, can you imagine if Brian Pillman never got into a car accident and you had a feud with Steve Austin and Brian Pillman, the WWF, like that? Oof. Not just really the matches, but imagine the promos. Imagine the promos alone. That would have been dope. Because you could have played on their back history. I mean, you obviously couldn't mention WCW, but you could have just said, we used to be a tag team back in Georgia, and Brian can be like, you got too big for your britches, and you stopped calling me, and blah blah blah. That could have been a huge feud. That could have been something that would have propelled Steve Austin into superstardom, which eventually he did become a superstar, and that could have been something that propelled Brian Pillman to superstar. Because you watch all these tapes, it's like this is a guy who, if you had taken that car accident out of the equation, we could be talking about him like in a more positive light. We could be saying he could have been one of the best superstars in the company. Could he have been The Rock? Probably not. But he could have been in that upper echelon with a Steve Austin. He could have been up there, with Shawn Michaels. He could have been up there with Brett or maybe even Taker because he was a character. So it's unfortunate when you think about it. And then, they're talking about the months leading up to his death that he just wasn't in the best of shape, that he was always high and that, he would literally sit in a hotel and have an IV strapped to his arm and then have to go out there and perform. And when he was wrestling, it was very limited because you can tell he was in a lot of pain. And, the story that, Jim Ross tells is just heartbreaking because Jim Ross wanted him to get drug tested. And Brian Pillman tells Jim, you betrayed me. I thought you were my friend. Which for Jim Ross is just, you can tell he was hurt by even remembering that. Like having to even repeat that just hurts him. I mean, it would hurt anyone, even me. And you get to the day of his death. It was Bad Blood, 1997, which that was the debut of Hell in the Cell. And Jim Cornette brings up the story that talent's supposed to usually be there around like 12 or 1. Usually some guys are late, but you got to be there by 5 at least. And Brian didn't show up, so he calls the hotel, and then the manager answers, and then puts him on hold, and tells him, "Sir, Brian Pillman died this morning." And at first, Jim's not believing it because he knows Brian. Because in his mind, he's thinking, okay, Brian's literally right there saying, tell him I'm dead, tell him I'm dead. But no, he says, no, he passed away this morning. And he finds like an intern or somebody says, go get Bruce Pritchard right now. He's like, well, he's busy. He's like, Pillman's dead. I don't want to deal with this right now. And like Jim's getting choked up, of course, which goes to show you Jim Cornette has a heart. He has a heart. As much as he doesn't want you to think he does, he has a heart. So he's getting choked up and crying, thinking about Brian Pillman, his best friend. And then the very next day they had the memorial. Well, not really a memorial show, but the wrestlers staying at the ramp and hearing the bell tilts 10 times. And then they have an interview with Melanie Pillman, which was in bad taste. Looking back on it, it was bad taste because again, I didn't see it when it happened, but seeing that was just bad. BAD bad. Like for, I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. That was done primarily just to pop a rating. That was done for shock value. And according to Melanie, she told Vince, "Whatever you do, don't ask me about drugs." And the first question that Vince asked is, he was taking a lot of painkillers. So, what are you gonna do? But yeah, that was just again, that was in really bad taste. So, life after Pillman's death, I think was you talk it. The kids, Brian Jr. and Brittany and Danny and then Melanie, they talk about life after Brian, which that was even more heartbreaking. Brian Jr. Let's go to Melanie in a bit. Melanie had received royalties from WWE because I think Brian signed a 3-year contract, and one of the kids, Danny, had said she had never seen a cent of that money because Melanie was using it. She used it for drugs. She used it for alcohol because you look at Melanie back in the day, and you look at her now. It's like you know, it's like a horrible before and after picture because she looked good back in the day, and then you see her now, and of course you think of Rick James. Cocaine's a hell of a drug, and she admitted she's like, I was partying a lot, I was drinking, I was doing drugs. I wasn't being a good mother. I wasn't there for my kids. And then she remarried, and Brian Jr. was talking about how abusive his stepdad was to him and his sister, and that he would lock him in his room and say you're grounded for 6 months, and have he would have literal dogs trained to attack him if he gets out of his room. They would just stare at him. And the one thing that broke my heart about Brian Jr. was that he said when his dad passed away, he never cried because I don't remember how old Brian Pillman was when his dad passed away because he said he was rather young, so he never really got to know his dad that well at all. And then you look at Brittany again. That broke my heart too. She's like, by the time I was like 7, I already lost both of my parents. So, really, um, so you get to Brian Jr. He starts crying more just thinking about the things that he couldn't do because he didn't have a dad. Because he's talking about how his stepdad was abusive and that, he, that he would just mainly stay in his room all day and play video games, and then his stepdad found his GameCube and then threw it against the wall and broke it. So he's talking about, you know, any attachments I've ever had to anything or anyone, I was always losing them. And then, oh my God, this is going to break my heart just saying it. He says, I never knew how to throw the ball or, play football because I didn't have a dad. And he just starts, that's when he really starts to lose it. And I'm just like, oh my God, dude, stop crying. Like, and I'm not saying it to be a dick. I'm just like, dude, you're making me cry. Please stop. And that's the part that hurt him worse was that, he didn't have his dad around to help him do those things. And, growing up, again, my childhood wasn't perfect. I'm not trying to compare anything. I'm just trying to make a point. I had a brother and I had a dad that helped me do things, that helped me learn how to, do chores or play sports. Even though I didn't play sports a lot, I didn't really play sports like regularly. I just played with friends. This poor kid didn't have anyone to help him do anything. And by the time he was old enough, he was living a hard life. He was getting abused. He was getting yelled at. He was getting threatened. And he was just seeing all this shit. Like he would see his mom pass out, drunk on the floor. And I'm just like, oi, just poor kid. Poor fucking kid. Um, so eventually he makes something of himself, and he says he went to college and got a G, not GED, but like his degree, and decided he wanted to become a wrestler. And he's been doing a pretty good job ever since. The show ended on a high note because, for the most part, it was sad. But it ended on a high note. Brian and his mom patched things up because Brian pretty much said, "Hey, am I gonna hate my mom for the rest of my life? Because you know what does that solve? Nothing. Why am I gonna hate her?" So he's been able to heal his relationship with his mom, and Melanie is just saying, I wasn't perfect. I just don't want my kids to hate. So and in a high note, and with Brian Jr., for the love of God, AEW push him. I'm not trying to say. Well, I'm not. Fuck it. I am trying to say this. Use tragedy as a way to build this motherfucker up because Brian Pillman, he looks like $1,000,000. He looks like $1,000,000. He has good work ethic, great in the ring. I don't think I really heard him speak on the mic too much, so I can't really judge him. But you need to push this guy. Get him away from this Varsity Blondes tag team. Push him. Let him be one of your top guys. Maybe not the top guy, but one of your top guys. And again, great babyface, perfect babyface. That is your white meat babyface. That's the way you can push him and gain sympathy from the crowd. And eventually, when he ends up winning the big match, the world title, you can have the entire Pillman clan in the ring, celebrating with him, and have him there on his arms and say, this one was for you, Dad. And Maurice is saying, "Oh, let him go build profile summers." I agree. I mean, I would say go to WWE, but I don't know because I don't know if there's still bad blood there. Um, and I don't know if they would let him be Brian Pillman. I don't know if they would call him something else. So I really don't know what they would do with him. I mean, I don't think that there's bad blood, as far as I know. So I know they made that DVD of Brian Pillman like in 2006. So I don't know I don't know what they would do. I really don't. Um, I don't know if they would go to MLW or maybe go to Japan. Maybe go to Japan. Yeah, have Brian Pillman just go to Japan. Maybe kind of build his profile somewhere else, like Maurice said, and be a big name, and then come back and go to WWE or go to ML or not ML. Well, yeah, go to MLW or AEW. So that's just my 2 cents. MLW's been jobbing the last time I've seen him. I think the last match he had in MLW was to Jacob Fatu, to the best of my recollection. But yeah, AEW needs to push this guy. If they're not going to push him, let him go somewhere else to build up his repertoire. Um, and I guess in I guess less sad, a less sad documentary. I saw the Booker T A&E documentary, which I see a lot of people not really digging the A&E documentaries too much because they're WWE documentaries. So WWE is kind of controlling the narrative a little bit. Because you compare the Steve Austin and Macho Man one, because the Macho Man one, they really painted Randy in a bad light. They really did. Like, it was unfortunate to watch it. It was almost uncomfortable because you had Hogan, you had Bubba the Love Sponge for whatever reason. You had fuck, who the hell else? You had Gorgeous George, and then there's someone else I'm forgetting. But you had all those guys, burying Randy, especially Bubba the Love Sponge and you fucking Gorgeous George. She's on here, saying, Randy did this. Randy, used to have cameras in my house. And I think Kevin touched base on this that apparently there were drug dealers trying to rob his house, so that's why he put cameras in her house to make sure she was okay. And then he alluded to, or she alluded to, that Randy might have done something to her 17-year-old sister. So again, there's really no proof of that, but uh, Hogan talking about how him and Randy buried the hatchet in a hospital, which, if that's true, good. An awful lot of Hogan on a lot of these documentaries, by the way. Hogan, spinning the narrative as Hogan would do, brother. Um, and then you look at the Steve Austin one, which again, Steve Austin's my favorite wrestler of all time, but that motherfucker was a wife beater. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. It's WWE, and of course they're not going to bring up Steve Austin hitting a woman. They're not going to bring up Steve Austin hitting Deborah, or there's another woman he was with that I can't really remember that he apparently used to beat her. I think Don Tony talked about it because I think Don Tony said that he's actually friends with one of his ex-wives and that she told him, everything that he used to do to her, and Steve Austin blocked him for it. So I really can't speak on it, but of course I'm not gonna bring up, the spousal abuse, which I was, I really in this day and age, I think Steve Austin needs to get in the forefront and kind of talk about it and just say, hey, I fucked up. It's kind of like Dr. Dre talked about his spousal abuse because he was married and he used to beat his wife, and there's another woman named Dee Barnes that was a journalist that had Ice, or not a journalist, a talk show host, and she had Ice Cube on her show. And this is when Ice Cube was defected from NWA, and he was talking a lot of shit about NWA, including Dr. Dre, and Dr. Dre saw uh, Dee Barnes at a club or a club or a party, and just started beating her and choking her, and then threw her down the stairs. And years later, Dr. Dre doesn't hide behind it. He said straight up, if you're a man, you beat a woman, what the fuck is wrong with you? What is going on in your head? So at least Dr. Dre has the balls to say, I fucked up royally. So I think Steve Austin needs to do the same because anyone can legally just do a Google search. I'm surprised none of these broads have came out and said, he used to do A, B, C, and D. Because I know Deborah did the same thing during the Benoit thing because she was talking about how Steve used to beat her and hit her. She would show up to work the next day covered in bruises, but apparently nobody was allowed to say anything because Austin was a top guy and blah blah blah. So whatever, I won't spend too much time on that. The Piper one I thought was good. Another depressing one because I didn't know Piper was dealing with depression later in his life. I didn't know much about his childhood. He had a very abusive childhood, and then he lived on the streets, and he had to rob some people, and then he was getting abused too. And then wrestling was his way out, so to say. And he's been married to the same. He was married to the same woman, till the day he died, and he had two great kids. Piper was a big star. Piper was in the first Mania. That's how much we know Piper. And then he died in a heart attack. He died of a heart attack in his sleep. Again, depressing. I don't mean to laugh about it, but and then Booker T was really less depressing. It was depressing in some aspects, but not depressing. I was like, oh, this guy is on drugs and he died. No, it was like, Booker T was the youngest of what is it, 7 children, and his mom passed away when he was 13, so they all had to live on their own. And for a while there, they were in a house by themselves where they had no running water, electricity, or really even food. And that sucks. I mean, I can't imagine having to live that kind of. I don't think anyone can imagine having to live that kind of life. And he admitted he had to he had to do things he wasn't proud of. He had to turn to crime. And he said he robbed the same Wendy's, was it 20 times, and nobody noticed until he finally noticed, and he got sent to jail for a year and a half. And while he was in there, he got his GED. He was trying to think. He was trying to think ahead. And when he got out of jail, he ended up getting a job, and he was trying to take care of his son. Because he had a son at 17. Eventually, he ended up getting fired from that job, and he got another job with a guy who really turned his life around. Who actually turned him on to wrestling. Or no, he didn't turn him on to wrestling. Stevie Ray did, and Stevie Ray's his big brother, and he was always saying, anything that Stevie did, I always wanted to do because I looked up to him, and that's where they met with was it Ivan Putski, and they went to was it the Global Wrestling Federation, was it? And he was GI Bro there, and got noticed by WCW. Went to WCW with Stevie, and became Harlem Heat, and again, that's where I started watching wrestling. One of the first wrestlers I saw was Booker T, and I always thought this guy is money. This guy looks like money. Like he looks like $1 million. He works like $1 million. This should be your star. And then, a lot of years later, he ended up winning the WCW title and that all that bullshit that was going on with Hogan and Russo. Became a five-time WWF champion. And when they were talking about WCW being bought out, Booker T was one of the only, probably the only star of the company that just said, "Hey, I want to work. I don't just want to sit home and collect money. I actually want to work." Because anyone doesn't remember, the NWOs like Hall, Nash, and Hogan, and then you got Goldberg and Sting and Steiner. They were literally sitting at home collecting money because they signed deals with AOL Time Warner, and they sat at home for a good, was it a year and a half? Sorry, my headphones blowing up. They were sitting home for a year and a half just collecting money. And Nash was just like gleefully about it. He's like, "Yeah, I sat at home and made bank. And I didn't have to do a damn thing." So I love Kevin Nash so much. I love him. He's cool. He's good. I love Kevin Nash is so fucking awesome. And then right away Booker T gets to WWF and he's already entrusted in a feud with Steve Austin. One thing I didn't know was that, so if anyone doesn't remember, the debut it was King of the Ring 2001. And it was the main event of Steve Austin defending the WWF title against Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit, which of course they're not gonna show Benoit. And then Booker T comes out and attacks Austin. He throws him over the table, but what happened was Austin had said it wasn't Booker's fault. I was just so sweaty that when Booker threw me on the table, I kind of slid off, but I hit my head at an awkward angle. But he admits he didn't handle it well because this is a new guy coming from another company that tried to put us out of business, and he just tried to hurt one of our top guys. So Austin admits he didn't handle that. He didn't handle that really well, but then he comes out and says it wasn't really Booker's fault; it was mine. And then the whole thing with Austin and Booker where they're fighting in a grocery store, and I'm surprised they didn't I'm surprised they didn't show them fighting in a church because I like that one. That was pretty underrated. And then Booker eventually just becomes a big star because Booker can work. Booker can talk. He has personality. He can be badass and he can be funny. Even Brian Less of all people. Brian Less had said, a lot of guys do the comedy shtick, but when Booker did it, it was actually funny because Booker T is actually funny. Like he actually has personality. So when he does it, it works. And then supposedly they said that they cut out the thing with him and Triple H where Triple H had made the racist comments towards him in that promo, but then Booker T was like, "No, we didn't cut it. It didn't get cut out. It just wasn't in there." He just said people are trying to make something out of nothing, so whatever. And then him being King Booker, which was the highlight of his career because he was the top guy and they gave him the title, and then he was. I just remember that him talking in like a really bad British accent, and then anytime something would happen, in Charmel's words, the hood would come out. They would go, "Oh, hell no. Hey, what you say, man?" Like, I thought that was, I always thought that was gold with Booker T. I'm surprised there was no TNA talk. Because Charmel had mentioned, eventually Booker wanted to leave so he can spend more time with the kids. And then he mentioned TNA, which, whatever. So I actually did listen with an interview for Booker. I'm just kind of sidetrack. Booker T had said the reason he left WWE initially to go to TNA was mainly because of everything that was happening, specifically what happened to Eddie and what happened to Benoit. Booker wanted a change of scenery. He wanted to leave because, he couldn't deal with losing more friends. So, which is respectable. And then, it ends with, Charmel saying, Booker, when you look at it, he really wasn't supposed to be on that stage in Madison Square Garden in the Hall of Fame. A guy like Booker T, where he grew up, he was supposed to be dead by the time, before he was 30. But he ended up making something of himself. Going back to when he was in, prison, when he said he left, one of the guards said, "Hey, I'll see you back here." Like that, like that's how bad it was that you were expected to fuck up, but Booker didn't fuck up. He made something of himself. So it was a good story. It was a good it was a feel good story, from the Dark Side of the Rings. Which again, I'm not trying to say one's better and one's worse. I'm just saying, when you're watching this story about a guy who just lives so much, who just dealt with so much shit, and eventually died, and then you hear about the trauma his kids had to go through, you're just like, ugh. And then you hear something about Booker T making something. So like, sometimes it's good to have a happy ending. Like, like you get it. Life sucks, but you want to hear a happy ending. You know what I mean? But what is it? So next episode, Dark Side of the Ring, is tomorrow, and that's gonna be Nick Gage, which I'll probably skip because I don't really give a fuck about Nick Gage, and I have no interest in watching deathmatch wrestling. It's never been a deathmatch guy. I'm gonna sound like Jim Cornette. That's not wrestling. That's not the wrestling I grew up with. That's an Outlaw Mud show. And this Sunday, A&E will air Shawn Michaels. We'll do the Shawn Michaels story, which we'll see how that goes. And because I've already seen the Shawn Michaels story, the what is it, Heartbreak and Triumph? I have the book and the DVD, so I've already seen that. So maybe there's gonna be more info. I don't know who's gonna be on that. I, I mean, okay, so obviously, there's gonna be Triple H. There's gonna be the rest of the clique like X Pac and Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. There's gonna be Vince. Or I'm pretty sure his wife is gonna be on there. I don't know if his kids will be on there. Man, I don't think they would. I don't know if they should though. Taker obviously, Bret Hart obviously. I mean, would Marty Jannetty be on there? I mean, didn't he just kill a man apparently? So I don't know if they would put him on there. I mean, I think those are really the only guys who would be on the show. I mean, would they be able to get Chris Jericho on this AEW, or not AEW, but this A&E documentary? Like they were able to get him on the Stone Cold podcast, and because he had that match against Shawn back at Mania, which was regarded as one of the best WrestleMania matches. So we'll see. Only time will tell. But I'm looking forward to that one. Not looking forward to the Nick Gage one. Letting you guys know that right off the bat. Um, so let's end the night with Backlash predictions, which is going to be this Sunday. WrestleMania Backlash, which is stupid. Just call it Backlash. Why does that to be WrestleMania Backlash? Really thing. So let's see. So far, there's 6 matches on Wikipedia. There's more than likely going to be more matches announced on SmackDown, or just keep it 6 matches. Why complicate things? Then again, it's WWE, so uh, so I'm just gonna go in order. I'm gonna start from the last match. So the 6 matches. Number six, Damian Priest versus The Miz, and a lumberjack match. So watched a little bit of Raw, and I know Damian Priest had a match with John Morrison, and John Morrison agreed that if Damian Priest won, he would get to choose a stipulation for this Sunday. If John Morrison won, he get to choose stipulation, which obviously Damian Priest won. So he's gonna face the Miz in a lumberjack match, which I mean, I don't know how that's gonna go, but hopefully this feud ends for 2 reasons. One, Damian Priest can move on and have better feuds, or at least another feud with somebody else. And then two, I keep calling him Johnny. John Morrison can leave Miz and be a single star. Maybe go to SmackDown. I don't know. But I want to see John Morrison do his own thing. I want to see John Morrison actually be in more meaningful matches and meaningful feuds. So, I did manage to catch the Damian Priest WWE documentary, which was it Chronicles. So it was like 30 minutes, and it was pretty good because I really didn't know much about Damian Priest. I knew he was Punishment Martinez in the Indies, and that's really about it. He openly admitted that there was a point in his life where he was really depressed about not being chosen by WWE, to where he admitted he stopped trying, and he stopped trying to be good in the ring, and he had gained a shit ton of weight, like a shit ton, until one day when he was working at a club, because while he was wrestling, he was actually making good money by working at a club. He was a bouncer, and I don't know if he got promoted or whatever, but the his boss told him one day, I can give you a promotion and you'll be making bank, but you got to quit wrestling. And he ended up putting in his 2 weeks and committed himself to wrestling because that was the one thing he wanted to do. That was the one thing that he loved doing. So when he was finally given the opportunity to focus more on wrestling, that's when he chose to lose the weight and get better. And it'd become a thing of like he would come in for tryouts. Like he came in for a tryout in 2015, and they said we like you, but we don't have anything for you. And then he called the year after that and said, hey, you got anything for me? And they would say no, and call the same year, or not the same year, but call next year, and they say no. So he just stopped trying, and then they called him and said, hey, we got something for you. And he came in the same time with Matt Riddle, Mia Yim, yeah, and Keith Lee. And I remember the first time I saw Damian Priest. Because I wasn't familiar with his work as Punishment Martinez, but I was only focusing more as his work as Damian Priest in NXT. That I wasn't too crazy about him because I was like, there's something missing about this guy. I don't know, because he has a cool. I mean, he has a nice looking gimmick. He's good in the ring. I don't know. There's just something about this guy I'm not too crazy about. And then he had that match with Finn Balor at In Your House. I'm like, okay, I can see this guy going somewhere. And the guy obviously seems like he's very grateful. He seems like a really down to earth, chill dude. And they showed him getting really emotional after his WrestleMania match. Because he says, "I arrived. I'm at Wrestle fucking Mania. I wasn't supposed to be here, but I'm here." So it's a good documentary. Go everywhere and watch it. But what were we talking about? Oh yeah, Damian Priest is gonna go over this. Uh, Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman versus Cesaro for the Universal Championship. I mean, Roman Reigns is going to win this. I mean, it'll be a good match, and it's good to see Cesaro getting a shot. This is Cesaro's first ever, WWE title opportunity. So it's good to see Cesaro, the company rewarding him and giving him something. I'm interested to see how this match goes because, Roman's matches as of late have been against better wrestlers, like Jay and Kevin Owens and Daniel Bryan. So I want to see where this match goes. I mean, I can't imagine it won't be bad. Because one thing I've always said about Roman is that he's a better partner than a lead. If this were dancing, he'd be a better dance partner rather than a lead. Which in wrestling it takes two to tango. And Roman has shown he can work, but he works better when he has someone more skilled and more reliable in the ring. So I imagine this match is going to be good. So, but yeah, Roman's obviously going on. Sorry, I just ate a burrito, so it's coming back up. Next, you have a tag team match player for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. You got the Dirty Dogs, Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode versus Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio. Um, it'd be nice if the Mysterios won it. I mean, because you can have that feel good moment of a father and son being tag team champions for the first time. But I mean, would they really do it at Backlash? I mean, wouldn't it be better to wait until SummerSlam to do that? That's just an opinion because you want to get that authentic, organic crowd reaction for when they win it. You don't just want to have it a throwaway pay per view that no one gives a shit about. But I would say keep it on the because keep it on the dogs for now, and then reward them at SummerSlam. Have that be a moment, especially since SummerSlam is going to be like the prelude into going back on the road in front of live crowds. Triple threat for the WWE Raw Women's Championship. You got Rhea Ripley, the champion, versus Asuka and Charlotte Flair. I'm kind of depressed because I think I'm kind of not digging Rhea Ripley anymore. Because in NXT she was great. She gets to Raw and it's just like, they're having her go out there and say this garbage, and I mean, you can't really blame on her because she's just reading what they tell her. But it's just like you look at Damian Priest and he's doing great. he's wrecking shit. Um, I mean, Keith Lee was doing well for a bit, but he's been out. I don't even know what the hell's going on there. Um, I don't really know what's going on with Rhea. It's sad because she's someone that should be money, but I don't know if it's her or creative or both. So, and her and Asuka just they really don't have good chemistry together. I mean, because the match at Mania was not very good, and then their match on Raw was not very good, which is weird because this isn't the first time you've had two really great wrestlers have bad matches against each other. Because Shayna and Becky had a bad match at Mania last year. You know, Asuka and Sasha don't seem to have good chemistry with each other. So and then you had Charlotte in this. So I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I mean, I guess the thought process is keeping on Rhea since you just gave it to her. So I mean, does Charlotte really need a title? I don't think so. So I'm going to go with Rhea. Next match is Bianca Belair defending the SmackDown Women's Championship against Bayley, which was my choice for Mania. Um, I believe Sasha is filming a rap album, or not filming, but recording a rap album. She put it on social media, so she's not getting a rematch, and I think she's maybe taking Hollywood. So I don't know. But I mean, this should be a good match on paper. They were kind of building it up for Mania until they started the Sasha and Bianca feud, and now that Sasha is going to be out for a bit, now they're going with this, and Bayley is just doing her best job get heel heat by attacking Bianca, stepping on her chungle, and just beating the shit out of her. So this should be a good match on paper. This should be possibly the match of the night, possibly because you got Roman and Cesaro. So those are my two choices for match of the night. Bianca's obviously going to win. You need something for Bayley to do, which at this point it's kind of a shitty thing to say because Bayley, in my opinion, is your best woman, your best woman worker. In my opinion, I think she's better than Charlotte. I think she's better than Becky. I definitely think she's better than Sasha. So this will be a good match. This will probably be the best match that Bianca's ever had. So yeah, Bianca's coming out on top, and I don't know if this is going to be the main event. I think Roman and Cesaro might be the main event, but again, I'm just going in order. Wikipedia. Triple threat for the Raw Tag Team Champ, or not Raw Tag Team, for the WWE Championship. Bobby Lashley, the champion, versus Drew McIntyre and Braun Strowman. This is obviously a way to still protect both Drew and Bobby Lashley because at Mania, that was a way to still make Drew look strong and to keep the title on Bobby and to make him look strong. So if you're gonna have a rematch, the thought process is, well, you're not just gonna let Drew lose twice in a row. No, Braun's gonna be the fall guy. Like whoever he gets pinned by, like he's gonna get pinned by whoever, and I'm assuming it's gonna be Bobby. Like Bobby's gonna keep that title for a long fucking time. One thing I've learned about WWE over the years is they like to experiment. So especially with Mania champions, Bobby's gonna keep that title and maybe till after SummerSlam. I mean, he's gonna hold on to that for a while. So keep that motherfucking title on Bobby Lashley. Do not take it off. I see no wrong in Bobby Lashley being champ. And then Drew McIntyre can just feud with Jinder, which they're trying to make Jinder a thing again. So, and then Braun can just fade off into obscurity. Oh man. So that's pretty much everything I have to talk about on the show. I already answered Maurice's question. There's a question that CM fucking Goof asked me last week. He said, "Would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?" What the fuck? Um, a horse-sized duck? I would think the ducks would be easier to take care of. You can just kick them. I really don't know how to answer that, CM Goof. If you're listening to this, but yeah, Probably the duck-sized horses, in my opinion. But anyways, that's the show. That's the end of the show. Uh, I'm gonna do a WrestleMania Backlash recap show this Sunday. Thanks, Maurice. Appreciate it. As far as guest goes, I'm not sure who I'm gonna have on. You guys will be the first ones to know. But it's better to have guests on to recap the show. But anyways, thank you, Maurice, for being here. Thank you to everybody else. Again, support the Patreon. Go to the Patreon. The link is actually pinned to the message chat. So if you just scroll up, you'll be able to see it. It's just $5 a month. $5. $5 gets you extra content that I've done with RJ, that I've done with Ruben, and also I did a show with Jeff Lippman. I don't know I don't know the next time when we'll record. Might be sometime next week, but I'll keep you guys in the loop. And like I said, this Sunday I'll be doing a recap show for Backlash. As far as the guest goes, not sure yet, but again, you guys will more than likely know the day of. Shout out to Wrestling Soup. Shout out to Kevin Castle, who has a show with Baseball Chicky called Castle and Chicky's Excellent Adventures. And it's a show. It's not a wrestling show. Definitely, it's they review pop culture. They did a show not too long ago. Where they talked about the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. So that's a good one. And they just did a show recently. So look for that to drop. And also Kevin show on Patreon. Trez, of course. I already said Wrestling Soup. Breaking the Apocalypse. Support those guys. Texas Podcast Massacre. Clark Street Wrestling Podcast. RJ. Brother Monty. All Scout Radio. Wrestling Court. My friend Peter's show. What the fuck is it called? Peter's probably listening. Is like, you fucking dick. Fuck you. Bops and Bangers. I think it's someone else. Dirk, of course. Listen to my boy Dirk. He has I know he has 2 shows. Let's see. Dimension Unusual with my friend Relly. Russell Bread Podcast with JD. And Ruben Prime, of course, my boy Ruben. Jeff Lippman, with the Garden of Doom and also Hammerlock Hangover. And that's really about it. That's all the shows. If I'm forgetting anyone, I'm terribly sorry. Hope we can still be friends. But anyways, I'll see you guys this Sunday for WrestleMania Backlash. Thank you for hanging out, Maurice. And let me just type in the thing for Craig so we can get the fuck out of here. All right, guys. Take care.